The evening was filled with laughter and lively stories. Around a large wooden table in the spacious hall of an old countryside lodge, a cheerful group had gathered. Julia sat next to Andrew and her husband, who had arrived a little late for dinner. Across from them sat Arthur, a new employee at the company. Formally, this was a corporate picnic organized by Julia's workplace. Under different circumstances, after spending time outdoors, everyone was supposed to return to the city the next day. Andrew knew that his wife was a beautiful and successful woman. They both had great jobs, 2 wonderful sons aged 13 and 14, and life seemed to be going just as they had dreamed. Complete happiness. However, over the past few weeks, Julia had seemed distant, as if something was bothering her. Andrew had tried to talk to her, but she remained silent. Julia had informed him about the picnic only one day before the trip. Without hesitation, Andrew agreed to go and arrange for their sons to stay with Julia's parents in the countryside. Still, he sensed that his wife was not particularly pleased with his presence, even though she said nothing aloud. During the bus ride, Andrew got to know Julia's colleagues. He had met Arthur briefly at a few New Year's parties, where Arthur had always kept to himself. Once they arrived, everyone settled into their rooms. Julia soon stepped outside, and after a moment's hesitation, Andrew followed her. He found her on the open veranda, talking animatedly with a young man and smiling warmly in response. A knot tightened in Andrew's chest. At that moment, a young coworker stopped beside him. "Are they having an affair?" Andrew asked quietly, nodding toward Julia and Arthur. "No, not yet, but the tension between them is like something out of Shakespeare," she replied with a sly smile. "They are both involved with other people, so for now it's just conversations. You can understand him, though. She approves his paperwork, and she constantly corrects his submissions." "And who is his wife?" Andrew asked. "Lauren. She works for another company. I have seen her a couple of times. She's very pretty," the woman said, chuckling softly. "Anyway, my husband is waiting. I have to go." "And you are?" Andrew asked. "Kate. And I am married," she replied with a smile. "Nice to meet you. I am Andrew," he said, masking his inner tension. Hearing this, Andrew realized what could happen if he had not joined Julia on this trip. From that moment on, he stayed by her side constantly despite her growing irritation. Evening fell. Conversations filled the hall, but the tension in the air was tangible. Looking at the abundance of alcohol, Julia smiled and said, "Andrew, tonight you can drink as much as you want, even to the point of seeing things. I will not stop you, but let's pretend none of this happened when we get home." "Gladly, my dear," Andrew replied with a slight smirk. "I will drink all I can." Despite her joking tone, Andrew picked up on the hidden meaning. He sensed she was trying to distract him, hoping he would become too drunk to notice anything. From conversations earlier, he knew Arthur was staying in room number 1 on the 2nd floor. Andrew watched as Julia and Arthur sat together discussing work. Seizing the opportunity, Andrew joined the conversation, using his knowledge of their shared university to guide the discussion. Arthur claimed he had attended the same school, though years later. However, with a few subtle questions about professors, Andrew realized within minutes that Arthur had never studied there. Meanwhile, music started playing and the party grew louder. Andrew quietly tampered with the speaker setup, switching a few wires. Eventually, the music stopped, and after a while, people began heading off to their rooms. Julia teased Andrew, "Shall I walk you to your room? Looks like you will not make it on your own." Arthur stood up, offering, "I will help." But Andrew replied in a perfectly steady voice, "No need. I am not drunk." "Are you sure you can walk on your own?" Julia asked, doubting. "Of course," Andrew said with a smirk. "Do you think you need to carry me?" Julia shook her head, surprised. "Amazing, you drank so much tonight." After a few more minutes at the nearly empty table, Arthur left for his room. Andrew and Julia headed to theirs. Once back, they lay down, but Andrew could not sleep. When Julia quietly slipped out of bed and put on her robe, he asked, "Where are you going?" "You are awake," she asked. "I cannot sleep," he said, sitting up. "Neither can I. I wanted to get some fresh air." Andrew put on a tracksuit and followed her. They stepped onto the porch together. Arthur was already there, smoking a cigarette. Seeing Julia, Arthur brightened until he noticed Andrew behind her. "Can't sleep either, Arthur?" Andrew asked casually. "Yeah, just having a cigarette before bed," Arthur muttered awkwardly. Smoking is a bad habit, you know, Andrew said with a cold smile. I do not smoke often, and only good cigarettes, Arthur defended. Good ones? I doubt such a thing exists. All cigarettes do damage, slowly but surely, Andrew replied. Then, suddenly changing the topic, he asked, By the way, why did you not bring Lauren with you? Arthur raised his eyebrows slightly in surprise. Lauren? Yeah, your wife, Andrew said with a smile. Julia's reaction showed she had no idea Arthur was married. Andrew continued, Many people brought their families. We left our sons with their grandparents. What about you? My wife and her parents went to the beach, Arthur said, his voice tight. Future plans, huh? Anyway, I am heading to bed. Good night, Arthur added hastily and walked off. Andrew and Julia wandered a little longer before finally heading back to sleep, lulled by the cool night air. The next morning, Julia woke up to Andrew gently stroking her hair. Sleepily, she murmured, What are you doing? Many people are already up and walking around. Breakfast will be served soon. Time to get up, he said, smiling warmly. You are ready already? She asked, stretching. Yes, I have washed up and packed. We are heading home today. The morning flew by. Andrew stayed close to Julia the whole time, keeping her within sight. Finally, everyone boarded the bus and returned to the city. As they passed by Julia's parents' house, where their sons were staying, Kate, sitting up front with her husband, caught Andrew's eye and bit her lip tight, realizing she had unintentionally confirmed Julia's budding connection with Arthur. They briefly visited Julia's parents, shared warm hugs, exchanged stories, and then headed home. Once there, Julia started preparing dinner, while Andrew and the boys worked on their small projects. At dinner, their eldest son, Alexander, said, This morning, when you were still asleep, Grandma went to the market and brought back fresh mushrooms. She cooked them for us. They were really good. You ate them? Julia asked, alarmed. Yeah, they were delicious. Why? I need to call my mom and tell her not to give you mushrooms anymore. It is risky, Julia said firmly. They were with adults. Nothing bad happened, Andrew remarked calmly. Dad, can we go to Grandma's other house and pick mushrooms too? Asked the younger boy, William, with enthusiasm. Why not? Andrew smiled. It is only 7 o'clock. If we pack quickly, we can be there by 10. Andrew, you have work tomorrow, Friday, Julia reminded him. I have 10 days of vacation coming up, he countered, and I have some unused time off saved up. Andrew called his manager, who was also a good friend, and within minutes, everything was arranged. Alexander, William, pack up. We are heading to Grandma's for a week. You know what to bring, Andrew said. Should we bring the fishing rods too? William asked excitedly. Of course, Andrew replied with a laugh. The boys raced off to their room, eager to start packing. At dinner, Andrew absent-mindedly pushed his fork through his salad. Then, lifting his gaze, he said quietly, Julia, I am not a child. I understand perfectly. You like Arthur. I was just a thorn in your side on this trip. You had plans, and they failed because of me. Julia looked stunned, then quickly composed herself. Andrew, are you serious? You are jealous of Arthur? That is ridiculous. Where did you even get that idea? Do not say anything, Julia, Andrew interrupted calmly but coldly. You will regret your words later. I am not asking for proof. For me, it is a fact. I know my presence ruined whatever you had planned, but I am not here to supervise you. My trust is broken. I just cannot believe you are saying this. What got into you? She asked, wide-eyed. Nothing got into me. I simply saw everything clearly. I am taking the kids on a trip. We will be back in a week. What happens after that depends on you. I need a reason to believe in you again. Andrew, what proof do you even have? On what basis are you accusing me? Proof matters to you, not to me. You have to decide what you want. Us or Arthur. I have not made my final decision yet, but the disrespect you showed at that picnic, I am still digesting it. The final conclusion, you will hear when I bring the kids back. And one more thing. If your lover shows up in this apartment while I am gone, there will be consequences. At that moment, Alex burst into the kitchen, cheerfully announcing, We are ready to go. Andrew calmly set down his fork, stood up, and silently walked to the bedroom. Gathering his documents, a tracksuit, and a pair of slippers, he left the apartment without saying a word. Julia was left alone in the now empty apartment. She knew Andrew was right. The entire idea of the trip had been crafted to spend time with Arthur. Deep down, she had truly hoped that Andrew would refuse to come along. knowing how much he disliked corporate events, considering them a waste of time and even harmful for workplace dynamics. Arthur had always seemed like a pleasant man. Since his arrival at the office, there had been a natural camaraderie between them. They often discussed work matters, and Arthur had a way of making Julia smile with his light jokes. Yet over time, she realized he lacked certain professional skills and often got confused with basic concepts. Now, Andrew had placed her in an impossible situation. Julia could not imagine her life without him. She knew Andrew did not have hard evidence but he did not need any. She also knew that Arthur was never truly important to her. At most, she had imagined some innocent flirting during the company picnic, a hug, maybe a fleeting kiss. But when she found out that Arthur had booked a separate room for himself, it had felt like a warning, a line she was relieved not to cross. Julia understood that women in the office noticed everything, and she knew she could not let things get out of control. After Andrew left with the children, Julia stayed alone, washed the dishes, and stood before the mirror, deeply reflecting on her marriage. Losing Andrew was something she could not allow. If there was even the slightest chance to save their relationship, she was determined to fight for it. Meanwhile, Andrew, along with the kids and his father Nate, loaded buckets and baskets into the car and drove to the village. The forests surrounding the countryside were still wild and untouched, and the boys eagerly explored the trails. This village, where Andrew's parents lived, had always been a second home to them. The forests promised a rich mushroom harvest this year. Nate pointed it out as soon as they stepped into the woods. "It is a good year for mushrooms," he said. "These parts are so hidden that city folks do not make it out here." "Why not?" asked Alex. "Do they not know the way?" "They know the way," Nate replied, winking. "But they are afraid of snakes. There are plenty around here. Sometimes even a harmless snake can scare you half to death. Though, to be honest, we do have vipers. Look there. One is sunbathing right now." Seeing the snake, Alex and Will excitedly started running toward it. "Stop right there," Nate ordered firmly. "Are you planning to catch it?" "Yeah, we will take it home," they shouted. "Now, what did I teach you?" Nate asked. "In the forest, you do not touch snakes, hedgehogs, or harm wolves and bears," the boys answered in unison. "Exactly. And do you really think you could take on a wolf or a bear?" "Well, no," Alex admitted, frowning. "But we would never hurt them. And the fact that a viper's bite can be fatal, does that not tell you anything?" "Maybe we could catch a harmless snake instead?" Will suggested. "No, we are not catching anything. Just look at the viper from a distance and leave it alone." As they talked, the snake, sensing danger, slid into the underbrush. They continued their walk without any incidents. When they returned to the house, Maddie, Andrew's mother, clapped her hands in amazement. "Oh my, there is no way I can clean all these mushrooms by morning." "Do not worry, Mom," Andrew reassured her. "We will all help. We will sit outside and clean them together." Indeed, the whole family, joined by some of Maddie's neighbors who came to admire the harvest, sat down to clean the mushrooms. They sorted them. The red-capped scaber stalks were to be dried, and the white mushrooms would be marinated. Even with all the fuss, everyone managed to have lunch in turns, turning the work into a warm family gathering. Around 7 in the evening, Maddie was still bustling about in the kitchen with the mushrooms. A few minutes after the last bus arrived from the city, the gate creaked open, and Julia stepped into the yard. She greeted Maddie warmly. "Where is Andrew? Where are the boys?" "They went to the community center," Maddie said, wiping her hands on her apron. "I thought they would be asleep by now, but the center director heard that Andrew was visiting and asked him to check their old sound system. They bought it back in the Soviet days, or maybe even the Stone Age, according to Andrew. He used to fix it all the time before he left for college. And besides, the director's sister came to visit, so he will be back soon. Go find them and enjoy yourself." When Julia approached the community center, music was already blasting. Clearly, Andrew had gotten everything working again. She walked inside and headed toward the dance hall. Inside, young people and a few adults were dancing. On the dance floor, couples swayed slowly, and among them, she spotted Andrew dancing with a woman she did not recognize. The woman was petite and athletic, wearing a sporty t-shirt and blue jeans. Andrew, in his old shirt, one they had long ago sent to the village, still looked strikingly handsome. Together, they were the most attractive pair on the floor. Julia felt a surge of anger and jealousy, though she kept her face composed. At that moment, Andrew noticed her but showed no reaction. Their sons rushed to her, excitedly urging her to dance, but she declined, unable to summon the energy. The music ended. Andrew bowed slightly to his dance partner and went to shut off the equipment. The evening was over. The director announced, "Dance night is over. See you Wednesday." "Be sure to come," Andrew called back. He approached Julia, where the boys eagerly chatted about chasing a snake earlier in the day. "Hey," Andrew greeted her calmly. "Is something wrong?" Julia looked at him, bitterness flashing in her eyes. "No, nothing. I just came to see my husband and found him already dancing with someone else." "Julia," Andrew said seriously, "I was not flirting. I was dancing with Alessia. We went to the same school. She is a childhood friend." "You two looked very cozy," she said bitterly. "I do not know how it looked to you," Andrew replied, his voice steady, "but I take my marriage vows seriously. I always have. There was not even a hint of flirting. I would never do what you did. But by Friday, I will have all the answers I need, and I will consider myself free of those vows." "Andrew?" Julia's voice trembled. "There was nothing between Arthur and me," she pleaded. "If there had been more than what I saw, Julia, we would not even be speaking right now," Andrew said, his voice heavy with sorrow. "You betrayed me. Arthur stayed loyal to his wife. After this trip, he will go back to a happy home. But you will be left sitting in the ruins of our marriage, waiting for someone who might never come." "Can I at least say something?" Julia whispered. "Yes, but not now," Andrew said, cutting her off, "and only if it is the truth. I will know if you are lying, and I do not want to hear lies. Besides, we are home. We will talk after dinner. I have not said anything to my parents or the kids yet." They ate dinner in the usual family atmosphere. After the boys went to bed and Maddie finished cleaning the kitchen, Julia stayed behind to help, doing her best to look calm. Nate had already gone to sleep. Once everything was tidied up, Maddie wished everyone good night and left for her room, leaving Julia and Andrew alone in the kitchen. "So," Andrew asked, "what do you want to tell me?" "I do not want to wait until Friday," Julia said quietly. "What about your job?" His voice was cold and detached. "I have taken leave, then a vacation. After that, I plan to resign," Julia said, looking him directly in the eyes. "But let me explain everything. I will not deny it. Arthur did attract me. His flirting was light and charming, and I got caught up in it. But during dinner when you questioned him, I realized he never attended our university, and he had hidden the fact that he had a wife and children. But that is not the point. The important thing is, after you left, I had time to think. I saw my life from the outside. I realized how much I love you and how I cannot lose you. I want to spend my life with you and grow old by your side." She paused for a moment, trying to gather her thoughts. "I do not know how believable this sounds, but it is the absolute truth. What I did was foolish and wrong, and there is no excuse for it. But I genuinely want to fix everything, and I am willing to do whatever you ask. I have learned my lesson. Please give me a chance to save our family. I promise I will do everything I can to rebuild your trust. You will never regret it." "Did you two plan anything during that company picnic?" Andrew asked, his voice tense but controlled. "No," Julia answered. "Our relationship never went that far. If you had not been there, things might have gone further. I think your presence held him back too, even though he was clearly unhappy about it." Julia sighed and looked into her husband's eyes. "Today, I disappointed him even more. I refused to sign any of his paperwork because it all needed to be corrected. I wrote a formal memo and submitted it along with my requests for leave, vacation, and resignation to the general director. Everything was signed, except the resignation. The general director called me in, asked what happened, and said he would personally verify where Arthur actually studied. He mentioned that Arthur lacked even the most basic knowledge. On the way here, I got a call from Kate," Julia continued. "She told me that Arthur threw his resignation papers on the desk and walked out without waiting for his final paycheck. All his work has been reassigned to her." "Did he try to contact you?" Andrew asked. "He did," Julia said quietly. "He called several times, but I did not answer. There is nothing left for us to talk about. I came here because I did not want to wait until you got back. Dad, I wanted to confess everything before you even stepped into the house. Everything is in your hands now. If you tell me to leave, I will," she finished in a whisper. Andrew sat in silence for a while, as if weighing her words carefully. Finally, he spoke calmly. "In the morning, I'm taking the kids fishing. I promised them. You can come with us if you want. But for now, it is late. Let us get some sleep." Time passed, and slowly Julia and Andrew managed to rebuild their marriage, though it was not an easy road. Andrew did not trust her immediately, but with time, there were no more doubts about her behavior. For her part, Julia never forgot the memory of that evening. Her husband, strong and handsome, dancing with a delicate and graceful woman under the loud music. That image stayed with her forever, reminding her how easily everything could have been lost. As for Arthur, after his sudden departure, he simply vanished. His fate remained unknown for a long time. Eventually, it was revealed that his wife, Lauren, had filed a missing person report, and after a year and a half, she officially divorced him. Arthur was declared legally missing by the court. It also came to light that he had never attended university and had once worked as a laborer on construction sites.